Welcome to Charm Conversations, an interview series that focuses on meeting some of the individuals in the hypnosis community and finding out a little bit more about them. I'm Cy. I'm going to be your host through these conversations, and I've had the benefit of meeting quite a few interesting individuals, both stateside and internationally, who I felt were great individuals to speak about what they see in the community, what got them started in hypnosis, and why they're here. So let's take a few minutes, talk to each one of them, get an idea about where they see the community going, where it's been, how they got started in hypnosis, and how they're just like the rest of us, looking for an interesting time and figuring out the human mind.
Hi, I'm MindtheBaron, and I'm thrilled to announce that my new hypnosis spoken word album, Adenium, will be available very soon at mindthebaron.com/shop.
Here at Charmed, we know it's the holidays, and you just feel like all the pressure is coming down on top of you. But just around the corner, there's hope. A little bit of light and a little bit of fun on the horizon. Charmed Online 2021 happens in January 2021, and tickets are still on sale for the low price of $25. Every ticket you get gets you into the pre-con classes, which will include such names as Wise Guy, The Secret Subject and Allison, and Lee Allure, in addition to the 3 days of fun following with the full convention. Pick up your ticket now and come join us for some after the holidays hypnosis, education, and fun. We'll see you there. The next person to be interviewed for the Charmed Conversations is MindtheBaron, a wonderful individual I had the fortune of meeting at Charm 2020, and someone who has taken a lot of time out of his schedule this year to help give something back to the community. He's been a great teacher, he's been a wonderful presenter, and somebody I had a lot of fun interviewing. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Here's MindtheBaron. We're now talking with MindtheBaron, and why don't you go ahead and, what pronouns, we started doing that as far as a question, and then also if you want to give what your resume is or how you're really involved in the hypnotic community.
Sure thing. Hi, Cy. That's MindtheBaron. He, him pronouns, and I am a hypno-fetishist, hypno-kinkster who it really enjoys the time that I spent in the hypnosis community online and in person. As far as resume goes, I've been engaged with the community in some form or another for about maybe the past 6 years or so. A lot of online, mostly on Discord, although there are a few other pockets of people who gather online, and you can find me in some of those spots there as well. The past 3 or 4 years, I've made a focused effort to join and participate in the in-person community at some of the regional conventions that we've had over the years. Unfortunately, where I live, there's no real hypnosis scene, so most of the in-person time that I spend is at conventions like Charmed.
Oh, I can commiserate with you fully on that. I believe we bumped into each other at Charmed, and that was one of the conversations in which I had with you about the fact that there wasn't really a community around me. And then I think at some point I ended up bumping into you again. You're like, oh, hey, I think I met a person who said that they were in the Midwest. I think you were talking about me at the time. So it's actually kind of an interesting conversation that you'd gotten so looped around that you thought I was me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the best things about the conventions is getting the chance to meet people that are maybe closer than you think.
Absolutely. And you were mentioning to me before we started talking that you had a new project that you were working on this year. Came up to you late spring after Charmed, and something you were thinking about during the COVID time?
I did, yes. For many people, pandemic has been really disruptive in terms of economic disruption, creating housing insecurity for some people, other types of insecurity for others, to say nothing of the actual effects of COVID itself, the risk of injury and damage and death. I have been extremely lucky and very privileged in that regard. But I did find myself isolating pretty hard, and in order to try and stay safe and keep people around me safe as well. And that isolation was a challenge. Most of my, as I was mentioning, in-person interaction with the hypnosis community has been at the conventions, and to not have those be in person was definitely a strain for me. It was a challenge. And so I found myself having a lot of time thinking about how that isolation can affect me. And um, I turned to a lot of online content, and there are so many great online content producers that are just producing some wonderful stuff out there. And I really enjoyed a lot of it. Tried to enjoy as much as I could since I was physically isolated. And I noticed a trend or a pattern. It seemed like a lot of the content was very specifically focused on a topic or a certain type of technique, and it was very short and focused. So here's a bite-sized morsel of exactly what you're looking for. You're in and out in 9 to 12 minutes, and it's a really nice thing. What I didn't see was a lot of this sort of long form structure that might look similar to what an actual online or in-person interaction might look like or feel like. I when I'm um, doing online sessions with people or in-person sessions with people, it's not 9 to 12 minutes highly focused on a specific topic in and out. It's usually a series of things that are done, and techniques that are used that have some thematic element in common, some through line that applies to everything that exists. And I thought about how that would translate into content production, and the idea came to mind that why not, since these all seem to be existing content seems to be all very much like musical singles, released by themselves. Let's bring back the album. And it seemed like a fun idea. It seemed like something that was relatively unique, and it was a way to um, begin to produce content for people that I couldn't go see in person, in a way that felt different, felt something new. So I started working up a concept in the late spring. I've been working through demo recordings and script work through the summer, and doing some of the finalizing now. But I am about to release an album, a hypnosis spoken word long form album. It's titled Adenium, which is refers to a particular desert plant, and that makes more sense once you listen to the album. But that was a place from which I drew some inspiration. I also drew some inspiration from the idea that it would be interesting to look back to a time before the pandemic, before some of the uncertainty that we've had here in the U.S. over the past few years, and reach back to what an actual play session might have looked like a few years ago, before some of the things that were stressing me out personally had to come to the fore and really started being a thing. So using those things as inspiration, as well as a couple of specific albums that inspired me, I pulled together a series of hypnotic ideas: inductions, deepeners, suggestions, effects, visualizations, just a variety of things that all fit into that structure. What would it have been like to sit down for a couple of hours a few years ago and have this sort of themed experience that was related to the idea of a desert plant growing out of nothing. So that should be available December 12th, 12/12 of 2020, and it'll be available on mindthebaron.com.
Sounds like a really interesting project. About how long are you shooting for? You said it was going to be an album, but that usually can vary in length. What's the experience runtime, I guess, going to be?
As it stands right now, it's about 90 minutes. I'm trying to tighten it up to 80 minutes because I'm not necessarily committed to doing this, but in my mind, I think it'd be cool to actually produce a physical CD. And CDs, the maximum length I think is 80 minutes.
Let the technology lie in the past. MP3 digital downloads. That's the
Right.
future.
Agreed. Yeah. But that's where it is right now. It's focused on having some length and some heft to it. It will also be loopable, so it's intentionally designed to for someone to be able to just hit play on their device and listen over and over and over. And I hope people are able to do that in a way that's enjoyable for them.
It sounds like a really awesome project. I look forward to seeing what comes out of it. I know that that's only about a short period away, so hopefully everything comes out all right and you get it out in a form that you enjoy for everybody to have their fun for the holidays.
Thanks. I'm hopeful. Really excited.
All right. See, now that's the good way to start things off. Nice little bit of buzz. All right. So, with that in mind, how long have you been in the hypnosis community in general, and what got you started, or what got you into hypnosis in the first place?
Well, I come to this from sort of the kinky mind control side of things from my earlier childhood. So I was one of those kids that found some of the um, mind control hypnosis stuff that they saw in media really intriguing and interesting. As far as actually discovering that hypnokink was a thing for me, probably really came to the fore in college when I sat in on a hypnosis session that was being performed by one of my fellow students. And it was intriguing, it was exciting, and I was hooked. From that point on, I started consuming content that I could find and practicing when I could. But there, again, I live in places where there hasn't been a lot of a scene for this sort of thing, as it were. So up until about 6 years ago, I was mostly listening to things on YouTube and things like that. But that was about the time that I discovered that there were actually people actually gathering online on places like Discord and Skype to practice and play. And that was the point where I first got started. And so I went from files to online one-on-one scenes and play to attending conventions. Started presenting a few years ago, and now I try to present where I can. And now I'm starting to produce content that I hope people in the community will enjoy.
Well, mentioning that you're a big fan of presenting, do you have anything planned for Charmed 2021? Have you put anything out?
Not yet. I've been focused on the album, trying to get that finished, but Charmed is such a important and central piece of the hypno community, in my opinion, that I think if I can pull something to get together, that would be that'd be good and beneficial. I can't promise at this point, but it's definitely on my mind.
You may not have heard it in another podcast, but I kind of glowed a little bit talking about you because you had given me hope in Charmed 2020. It was the major time when I learned about the hair pull induction, and you were up presenting with Mazarian and Velveteen, and you're like, see, I don't have a whole lot of hair, but I still want to enjoy this too. So what you can do is grip the back of the skull, and you understood where I was coming from. I don't have a lot of hair, so I was very happy to have somebody representing my style of hair issue up front so I could enjoy it too. You gave me hope.
I'm so glad to hear that, and it's true. The idea of hair pulling and hair play. In some cases, the actual hair part's kind of optional.
Yeah, it was just something I was laughing at, but that was sadly how you've always been attached to my mind. And every time I start talking about the hair pull induction, well, Mind the Baron had a demonstration. I'm sure your ears burned every time, but I still laugh at it.
I'm really glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that those demos and those examples are sticking with people because the hair play thing is so much fun.
Yeah, and I think that everybody needed a little bit of ice water after what was going on at the front of the class with y'all. So If you missed out, folks, you missed a treat. It was a great experience of watching that. Yeah. Also, apparently, I've been going to the wrong colleges. Both you and Lure talk about, oh, well, in college, somebody was doing a hypnosis, or I think she saw hypnosis stage stage hypnosis, something along those lines. That you've got, somebody in your local area who's doing. Man, I went to the wrong college. I never had experiences like that. Damn.
On the plus side, though, you have all these opportunities to engage with the community. So, yeah, you'll have a chance to make some steam, I'm sure, once we can all get back in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, and I absolutely can commiserate with you about struggling with mental energy, mental stability with this whole COVID situation. I wasn't affected as much, but I am not a non-social individual. I like being around people for as long as I can, and it has been a struggle, I think, for everybody. So hopefully that end is in sight now that the vaccines are being discussed. Huzzah!
Right, definitely. And it's really been inspiring how all of the existing in-person cons have pivoted to this online format. It really gives me hope that the community is resilient and that we can weather any storm.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody has to, I call it my trans cookie, but everybody has to get their trans cookies somehow, and online is the way to do it right now. Also, I think it helps extend that hand outward towards our fellow hypno kinksters overseas, that there are so many individuals who don't have the benefit of having 5 or 6 conventions every year to visit. So hopefully opening that online door a little bit gives them the opportunity to grow a little bit and maybe spark their own conventions as well.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to attending some international virtual cons if they start cropping up a little bit more.
Then I think the fun part will be when you start doing inductions in foreign languages. The question is, do the words matter, or is it just intonation? Is it just the situation, the scene? You know, I would love to see the difference between a French induction and a German induction. I think that would just be fascinating to watch.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I don't have I didn't get permission to name drop this because I didn't know this was going to come up. But at the last Entranced that they had 3 years ago ish, there was a class that specifically focused on how doing hypnotic inductions in different languages had specific linguistic benefits and pitfalls, and the two example languages they used were French and German.
Oh
That
wow, I
class,
called that
right?
excellently.
The that class was taught by Solarian. They're uh, a Canadian member in the HypnoKink community, and yeah, I that was a really educational class. I thought it was very interesting to see how not just the grammatical constructs associated and differing between languages like French and German affected your word choices and how you might pursue a hypnotic induction, but the cultural differences as well. One of the things that was mentioned, the German speaker was Erogenous Mind, who also speaks a little German, and he mentioned explicitly that the because the German language is more directive, that it's harder to speak using permissive language constructs when you're doing a hypnosis induction in German. It was really interesting. And that kind of didn't surprise me because I think, and I don't have a lot of exposure to the German people, so apologies to those of you out there who I'm about to mischaracterize. But I think of Germans tending to be direct. And so it makes sense that the language tends to also be direct and then therefore may not have as many options for permissive language. So yeah, hopefully Solarian will bring that class back, and you'll get a chance to hear her do her French induction, which candidly is lovely.
Oh yes. Wow. That's really interesting because that was just an off the cuff conversation. That hmm And I never even thought about the whole aspect of how word choice, structure, all of the, I guess, how phrasing is used in different languages would impact that. That's a really interesting thought. Hopefully, they do bring that back. That would be amazing to watch or listen to.
Definitely.
So, since you've had such experience, not only being somebody who lives outside of the normal flow and gets to travel and do physical, but you've also had to kind of grow into um, figuring out how to play and enjoy your hypno kink capabilities online. What's some advice that you might give to someone who's just starting out in the hypnosis world, whether it be online or in person?
Oh, this is a really interesting time to get into the hypnosis kink because it's one of the few kinks that can be uh, roughly equally effective over online as it can be in person. It's very difficult to whip somebody who's in another city or on another continent, but a lot of the things you might do as part of playing in a hypno kink scene translate pretty readily to the online environment. So for someone who might be just sort of a kinkster who's interested in other kinks, who's discovering hypno kink for the first time, this may be an opportunity to lean into something that isn't quite as shackled by, as it were, by the physical limits of distance and time and or shackles. So that would be something that's, I think, really important. Take a look and lean into it. If you're new, if you're new and you're getting into this, I think the thing I would suggest first is ask around about the things that interest you. Don't be afraid to ask because you never know what the person next to you or the other person who's on the group call or who's in the Discord might know or might be able to point you to. This is a very rich world full of almost anything you can imagine if you can find the right person who's familiar with it. And the way to find that person is to ask.
Solid advice. Put yourself out there. Never hurts to ask if somebody knows about something you're interested in, because honestly, that's how I found out about the hypnosis community. I was in my local kink group and ended up just saying something, and somebody goes, "Oh yeah, I read hypnosis." I'm like, "What? Oh yeah, totally. This book. What? Yeah." And it's just that opportunity to find your way. Universe does funny things.
That is so true, and it's amazing what you'll stumble across. You may find exactly what you're looking for.
Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Please,
Right?
please, pretty please. All right. So, with your time in the hypnosis world, what's one of the rumors that you see kind of coming around all the time that you wish you could get rid of or help dispel more often?
Oh, well, I've actually, just to give you a heads up, I've listened to the other instances of the podcast so far, and they've given great answers, and I would agree with all of them. So I'm going to give a different answer just so that there's some variety. But this is something that I do feel strongly about. In fact, this came across my social media, my kink social media today. And it is the idea that people are inherently one type or another when it comes to expressing themselves with kink in general or hypno kink in particular. And for example, if you can't be you can't be switchy. You have to either be inherently dominant or inherently submissive, and you cannot be both. And sometimes I kind of wonder if that comes over to us in the hypno kink community from the generic kink community, where it's a lot harder to envision people both, say, wanting to whip others versus being whipped. And I don't know if it's a reflection of the physicality of other kinks sort of imposing a limit on people's vision of what's possible, or if it's something else. But the idea that you can only play one way in hypnokink because you can only be either one way or the other. You can only be a dominant hypnokinkster or a submissive hypnokinkster is definitely not true. I know plenty of people who do both, and while they may have tendencies of one type or another, they are perfectly valid playing and engaging in hypnokink from either type of role, either across the length of a con or across the length of a relationship or between multiple relationships. You can have a more dominant energy with one person and a more submissive energy with another. It's really all about how you mix in with the people you're mixing with. And personally, I feel like hypnokink affords a greater opportunity for flexibility on that because we are living mostly in what's happening in our minds, and our minds are not limited in this way. And so it always makes me a little sad to hear and see people continuing to say, oh, well, you have to be one or the other. And if you're both, you're not being honest with yourself or whatever. It's just not true. This may not be well known. Probably don't advertise this a whole lot, but I am a top leaning switch. I am one of these people. And so, you can look at a person, you can look at their body of work, you can look at how they interact with people in public, and you can make a lot of assumptions. But the truth is, people are what their minds allow them to be. And people in this hypnokink community in particular can be more than just what some group of people think that they can be in terms of being either dominant or exclusively submissive. It's just not a thing.
If you are one of those individuals, I'm right there with you. I consider myself to be more of a switch service top. I enjoy giving other people pleasure, but it's about the experimentation. It's about being able to play. It's about being able to figure out new experiences and identify new skills, which is something that's difficult to do in others if you don't know how to do it yourself. At least that's how I view it. So I'm right there with you. It is definitely you can be either or. You can be submissive with one person, dominant with another. And it really even doesn't have to be a submissive and dominant situation. That's the reason why there's the hypnotist and the subject as far as a separate set of terms, especially because everybody wants to have fun. What does it really mean if you are a little bit more aggressive when it comes down to play? That doesn't mean a damn thing when your mind is the one you're, kind of sending off to La La Land while the rest of you gets to enjoy.
And that's a really good point that I think people need to hear more of. So if I was going to pick a rumor to dispel, that would be it. It's not a thing. You can switch.
That's a great one. And can I just say, I appreciate somebody who comes to a situation doing their homework first. I think you're the only person who admitted that they've done it, although I can probably see one or two people doing it before. But I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That makes me feel a little bit better that apparently you suffered through me 4 times before you got to do yours.
It was time well spent. Those were some fantastic other interviews as well. I really enjoyed them.
Well, and it has been just a gem of a time to be able to interview everybody, so I'm glad that we had an opportunity to talk with you. So let's get to some of the fun stuff. What's one of your, and I always have to preface it now, if you want to give a top 3, cool, or more, whatever. But what's some of your favorite kinks with hypnosis?
Well, in my case, it's very easy to pick one that's sort of preeminent for me, and that's the hair pulling thing. I really enjoy how those two things intersect. There's something just deliciously intimate about being engaged with somebody around their hair and head and scalp and face, because it's a way to elicit, to cause change, whether it's a change from one state of awareness to another, or one emotional state to another. Um, Being able to exert that kind of influence in that way, through pulling or stroking or braiding or kneading someone's hair, is unlike anything else for me. It's just delicious.
Mm. And that was the reason why you were doing so well with the class. You were somebody who enjoyed the subject matter and had full energy for it.
Definitely quite enthusiastic.
Any other ones that you care to share? I know you mentioned before that you were part of the mind control aspect that's got you into hypnosis. Is that something you enjoy as well? Maybe gives us a little bit more of a hint about Adenium and what you're going to do.
Sure, that's definitely true. Um, I think in terms of play, I'm more of a reaction junkie. So beyond the idea of hair pulling and some other fun things like that, I'm more about connecting with people I enjoy, and doing things that are fun with them, rather than necessarily doing a particular type of thing other than the hypnosis or the hair pulling.
That's fantastic. I think that sometimes it's a spur of the moment situations and the reactions you can get that are some of the best parts. So, yeah, awesome. No, go ahead. You were going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say and there are such fun people at conventions like Charmed. So, being able to get to know those fun and interesting people, and find out things that I didn't know, find out things I didn't know I enjoyed, find out things I didn't know were really hot. I mean, that is one of the best things about being at a convention, is being able to connect with these fun people and find out all these fun things.
Different perspectives bring different ideas, and those ideas lead to much more fun and interesting play. So, yeah, I get where you're coming from on that. Now, I know that sometimes I ask the question of, as a content creator, what do you feel is like the difficult part? But maybe we just kind of take it from the perspective of Adenium without, overplaying the subject. But what was kind of the hardest part about coming up with this album in mind? Was it trying to build the structure of it? Was it trying to form out the idea behind it?
It was definitely around trying to form the idea. And the thing that really made it difficult for me was actually the thing that makes all of the content that I produce, presentations or anything else, also difficult for me. And it's the idea of sort of imposter syndrome adjacent. It's the belief that I don't have anything original to say, or at least I shouldn't be speaking up unless what I have to say is truly original, because there's somebody else out there who could probably say it better and probably knows more about it. And they're the ones that should probably be saying the thing about it anyway. So I should just sort of sit back and let them say it. So it's this sort of constant nagging reminder that, hey, there's a lot of this that you don't really know. You may not know as much about this as you think you do. You may not be coming up with something that's all that particularly interesting. It's that inner critic. I think we all have that a little bit. And for me, that is the thing that I think hamstrings me the most in general. And it made the development of the album the most challenging in particular. Even though I had what I thought was a fairly, at least uncommon, if not completely original concept in terms of producing an album, there were still every decision that I would make about what types of content to produce. How should I go about it? What thematic elements did I want to emphasize? How heavily produced do I want this to be? Do I want it to be sort of really stripped down and just sort of focused on the sound of my voice, which is the choice I ended up making, or do I want to really heavily overproduce it so that it feels more like an album production? Every one of those decisions, the inner critic was just working overtime, just throwing in reasons why this isn't going to work, reasons why this isn't going to be enjoyable for people, reasons why yeah, you should just leave this to the professionals, people who do this full time, like The Secret Subject or some of the others. Um, and so for me, overcoming that inner critic is always the biggest hurdle. So I would say to those of you out there who are listening, um, the important thing to notice when you hear that inner critic telling you, hey, you don't have anything interesting or unique to say, the truth is that each one of you is different. Every one of you is unique. And by definition, your take on whatever you're producing content for is going to be unique. And no matter what it is you're producing, there's going to be a niche in the community that's going to appreciate it, because the community is broad and wide, and there are so many of us that have so many varied interests. You're going to reach somebody. And so I would encourage you, as much as I try to keep my inner critic in check, I would encourage you to do the same, whether it's producing audio files or video, or writing scripts, or perhaps envisioning and delivering a podcast for people to listen to. Don't give that inner critic too much credit. Uh, Step out there anyway. It's going to be worth it.
I think that is wonderful advice, because I think the point that comes across for everybody in hypnosis is that every subject will react to suggestions differently. You could give the same suggestion to 5 different people and they're going to interpret it different ways. Everybody brings a new perspective. And I think that if you have an idea, even if it's your version of a bimbo, it's your version of a musical story, if it's your version of anything, it's your version. And at least somebody is going to enjoy it. And if one person enjoys it, isn't that worth all the effort? You made somebody's day better.
Very well said.
Oh, that's I think that touches a little heart right here in the home too, or home in the heart, because yeah, the inner critic's a little bit of a prick to everybody, I think. So
Right? Yeah.
well, so with that in mind, you said that you've done a lot of presentations, things along those lines. Do you feel that educating the not newer generations, but educating individuals at conventions or online is kind of an important aspect of the hypnosis community, or is it something that everybody kind of should fend for themselves and dig for that information on their own? What's your opinion about education in the community?
Well, personally, I don't necessarily think of myself purely as an educator. Again, there's areas of this kink that I have some knowledge and understanding of, but there's so much that I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily want to hold myself up as an educator per se. As far as responsibility goes, I believe that every community member is fully responsible for their own education, and every community member who produces content or presents or teaches or leads is responsible to support every educational journey that's being undertaken. So I would say that I don't feel I am responsible for the collective education of every person who would attend a presentation or listen to a piece of content that I produce. I do feel like it's important, and I am responsible that when I am presenting content or producing content, that content be worthwhile and educational on its particular subject. So, for example, this is part of the reason why in the hair and hypnosis class, Mazirian and Velvet and I focus so much on safety, because the goal for the presentation is for people to be able to go out and practice and play using the techniques that we show them. And because we're handing people a technique to go out and use, it is our responsibility to model safe use of that technique, as well as talk about how to perform those techniques safely. So I see that as central to the work in terms of presenting content. I don't necessarily, because I'll do a hair play class on occasion, I don't feel that um, I am then ultimately responsible for the overall educational growth or success of every person who attends that class. I do feel responsible to present them with the tools that they need in order to use what I'm presenting safely. As far as content goes, for the album, for example, I mean, that's primarily to entertain and for people to enjoy. So there's not a lot of uh, transfer of knowledge in terms of techniques or anything like that. So I feel like the burden of education is lighter in those situations. I do feel like content producers should model consensual ethical behavior in content and issue appropriate warnings so that everyone can enjoy their content with their eyes wide open about what's happening and about what they're consuming.
So what I'm hearing though, and this will just be my little suggestion for your project, we need a behind the scenes, the director's cut of Adenium of how you put it together, the techniques that you use. It will be the extra track, the Z track at the very end, in which you go through how you put it all together, so that way others can learn from your experience.
Sounds like a great idea. Hopefully that's something people would appreciate.
Please don't do it on my account, because I'm gonna say I'll listen to it, but at the same time I'm ADD as hell. Forget about it in about 2 weeks and be like, oh, he went through all that work for me. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Hopefully it'll be beneficial for everyone and they'll enjoy it.
I don't think that there has been a piece of content put out that at least somebody didn't enjoy. So I have a feeling that you're going to have a lot of people who are going to respond positively to it, because I think anytime there's a new trend or a new idea out there, everybody jumps on it. They want to see what it's like, especially a long form. Whew, that'll be a lot of fun, especially if you can loop it. I'm sure somebody will be like, all right, well, I've got a weekend free. Let's do this.
You're describing exactly what I'm hoping for. Hopefully this will be the first of many and not just from me.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we'll take the ice bucket challenge, but now turn it to the Adenium challenge. All right, go 24 hours listening to it on loop. All right, we got this, guys.
That's evil. I like it.
Here we are helping out the community. All right, so since you've been in the community for a while, you've been kind of seeing some changes this year, but what's one of the biggest changes that you've seen happen in the community over the time that you've been in it? Was it the advent of technology? Was it the conventions rising? Was it just people just bringing consent around? What was one of the biggest changes you saw?
I think the biggest change that I've seen is the idea that um, knowledge and expertise with hypnokink is no longer treated as the domain of the bearded middle-aged white dude, and I think that's a good thing. The
Absolutely.
There's a lot to learn from years and years of experience with this particular hypnokink, but just because you've been doing the same thing for 30 years doesn't necessarily mean you have 30 years worth of knowledge to impart. And there are a lot of differing perspectives that come with approaching hypnokink from where you are as a person, especially if you're a person that doesn't fit that stereotypical cishet white dude thing, that has been more and more emergent. And I think the community is a lot better off as a result.
That's a really interesting answer. Honestly, I fully agree with you. It, it is definitely, there needs to be a little bit less on the white dude side. Me being a white dude saying that totally. I absolutely love people who, of any type, decide that they want to get involved and want to learn and want to share their ideas. I think that your point about 30 years worth of time does not equal 30 years of experience is exactly on point. If you're doing 30 years of experiments, we'll talk. But if you're just doing the same thing over and over for 30 years, you know that really well, but we don't know if you really know the subject matter really well.
Exactly.
Here's to hoping that I get 30 years of experimentation. That would be fun.
Right?
With that, what's something you want to encourage or something you want to see happen more in the community or you always like to see more of in the community?
Well, it feels like the some of the things that are coming up now are we're seeing more participation specifically from marginalized communities, communities that are either culturally marginalized, economically marginalized, socially marginalized, and I think that is. Um, we need to see more of that. I mentioned the whole, cishet white dude thing, and the need for them to make room for those who don't look like them or sound like them or come from that same level or same type of experience. I do still think we need more of that. I think we're the community is still very white, and it's still a little too male, and it still seems to gravitate more towards those of us who are economically privileged enough to be able to regularly travel by air and attend conventions and prepare presentations and that sort of thing. And it feels like as we continue to expand, because the kink community has grown, in hypnokink in particular, has grown significantly from what I've seen in the past several years in terms of just numbers. And because that's true by definition, we should be seeing more people of color, more more BIPOC people, Native American people who are in these communities that may be demographically marginalized. We should be seeing more people who are economically marginalized. And those perspectives are going to only strengthen us the more we are able to engage them. So my hope is that we will explicitly turn towards those communities for the things that they can teach us and for the things that will strengthen us as a whole.
That's unique. That's a great perspective. I fully encourage and endorse that. I think that is something that everybody should be striving more for, to include everybody. If somebody has an interest, if somebody has an inkling that they might find it enjoyable, to encourage that, whether they be any gender, sexual identity, color, creed, whatever. They should get to enjoy it just like the rest of us. And I hope that they feel confident enough to let their voice be heard, let their words be heard. Hopefully that's
Absolutely.
something we'll see more of.
Yeah, very much.
So, talking about, kind of feel a little bit of like a dick talking about it now like this, but for those of us who do go to conventions for the first time, what would be a piece of information or guidance that you would give to somebody who maybe not just convention, maybe we'll talk about the community as a whole. If somebody is first branching into the hypnosis community, what would be a piece of advice that you would give them? Like in person, online, however.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. The backing up real quick to the idea that um, those one of the things that could be done engaging some of these more marginalized communities is actually one of these benefits that comes from, I hate to say it, from the whole idea of the pandemic. Virtual participation is a lot easier for some people because it doesn't require all the travel. And so leaning into making convention experiences more accessible to people who aren't able to actually do the travel is something that I hope that conventions will start to think more about going forward, even after the pandemic stuff has become less of a dominant factor in our lives. But looking specifically at the question as far as what's a great thing to know when you're first showing up at a convention, whether it's a regional convention you travel to or even like a local munch or that sort of thing. The idea, I've found that uh, my best experiences come when I don't lean too much towards isolation introversion or lean too much towards extroversion or engagement. And so I would encourage people, don't don't find yourself falling too far to one side of that or the other. If you know your natural tendency is to be more introverted and engage less, I would encourage you take the opportunities to step out of your comfort zone on that a little bit. Um, Conventions are a great place to meet people, people who might have a lot of things in common with you more than you realize or are aware of. And you're only going to meet those people if you create those opportunities and do that. Every convention, I think, at some level tries to have meet and greet type events, speed trances, or other things where you can meet lots of people. Charm does a great job of getting everybody to sort of get into similar places at similar times around similar things. Things like, fractionation station and, speed trance and things like that. Take those opportunities. Even if you don't necessarily fully participate, at least be there, be present. You never know who you're going to run into, and you never know what they might know or how much you might have in common with them. The other side is try very hard not to overdo. And this is a particular downside of what's great about Charmed. Charmed is huge. There are tons of people, there's tons of things going on, and there's nothing quite like it, which creates this potential for people to feel like they're missing out if they're not constantly engaged in some way or another. And uh, as far as that goes, it's very easy to go too far. I would definitely encourage people to follow the 5-2-1 rule. Definitely get 5 hours of sleep, 2 meals, and a shower in every day. You will be much happier and ultimately have a lot more fun if you do.
I don't think I heard the 5-2-1 rule with me before. Like, the 6-3, 6-3-1 would work for me. But that's good advice. I think that con time is absolutely a thing. You're never going to be able to get everywhere you want to go, and you're not going to be able to see everybody you think you'll be able to see. Just enjoy it, go with the flow.
hmm And go with the flow definitely means engaging more or engaging less, depending on how much you're physically and emotionally and psychologically ready for it. Um, just to be a little bit open and transparent here, I think I come across as relatively calm, but at conventions, I will routinely just disappear and go back to my room and sit in the quiet for 15 minutes. I'll do it 3 or 4 times a day, and I need to do it. Otherwise, I can very easily find myself overwhelmed. So, if you're that kind of person, and I am, lean into that. Just recognize that's how you are, and deal accordingly. It's also very easy to just sort of sit too long once you've decided to go sit somewhere quiet for a while. Um, know when it's too long and it's time to get back out there and be social and look for more opportunities.
Yeah, take care of your mental health, take care of your mental situation, and just be aware of your own personal signs. I'm one of those individuals just like you. I know my limits. When I hit that point, it's like, thanks, guys. I'm going to go ahead and disappear for a while, go grab a drink, go, sit in the room, read a book, whatever, decompress. And people can be overstimulated. It is absolutely a thing. People can also be understimulated. Being sitting in a room by yourself for too long, maybe that's a bad thing. You start bouncing off the walls. So,
Very true.
hmm. Who would have thought? At a hypnosis convention, people should be worried about their mindful states.
Well, when you say it like that, right?
Right? So, what's Do you have a, not a favorite memory, but do you have a fun story or anecdote or situation that you'd love to share about one of the conventions or community events that you've been to that you find as a good example of, ooh, you had no idea it could happen, but it did?
Well, I think for me, I always find that the fun things that happen are unexpected um, when you put yourself out there a little bit. And I think the example I'd want to share uh, is one from Charm 2020. This was something that happened in January. One of the things that I did this past year that was definitely new for me and stretching my comfort zone a little bit was to participate on the consent team. And ultimately, it was a really positive experience and a good chance to be able to give back to Charmed in a way that I hadn't done for previously or for any other convention. Um, one of the one of the duties associated with serving on consent team is being readily available and visible for specific periods of time, certain shifts during the weekend. And during one of my shifts, where there weren't a lot of concerns about, there weren't a lot of consent items or incidents coming up or anything like that. I was sitting out in open space, and one of the people who had been in the hair pulling class came over and sat down and kind of just offered up their hair. And so I thought, all right, well, we can go over techniques that we covered, or just sort of enjoy, um, being able to do some of the things that we demonstrated. Then another person came over and sat down. Then another person came over and sat down. Then another person came over and crawled on top of a folding table that was right next to me and laid down and dangled their hair off the edge of the table. So, yeah, I was. It went from me just sort of sitting there doing consent things, being consent team guy, having this pop-up candy store of opportunities to do hair pulling stuff, just sort of assemble itself in front of me. And I that was amazing. It was fun in so many ways because these are all people that I knew and like, and there was an opportunity to break up what had been kind of a boring consent team shift. It was a little slow for me, and also to be able to show that it's okay to be at a place like Charmed and indulge the things that interest you, do the fun things, and do them in a way that's visible, in a way that's public. And I hope that that was not only just really kind of hot for me, but also a an example of what can happen if you're willing to put yourself out there and maybe take a little bit of a risk. You can do a fun thing. You can do it in public, and maybe you can inspire somebody else to do fun things in public as well.
And I laughed just because of the situation, but that's an amazing experience. That is what I consider charmed in the hypnosis community, at least the aspects that have been beneficial in uh, experiencing, is about being open, being capable, being vulnerable, being able to just start things. And I feel like Charmed was a place where that happened. You would see that happen there. There's stories about the elevator gate, that there have been other. I mean, hell, Charmed would make sure that there were rooms available for people even when classes were not there. So people wanted to sit and have a quiet place to talk, to do trance work, to just chat, to go take a nap, whatever. They absolutely could. And I think that that is just part of the community. It's, you never want it to be a concern about being a risk, but everybody there is there to have a good time, to enjoy themselves, and you kind of feel safe with the other wizards, not really worried about the muggles.
Yes. And that's one of the things that Charm does really well, especially with the change to the new hotel. Being able to be in this largely semi-isolated space at the scale that they do, because there are so many attendees and they can be big and they can take up space. It really created this sort of pocket, this bubble, this room where you could just forget that there's this outside world that doesn't necessarily get our thing, and just be with your people. And that's one of the best things about conventions and one of the best things about Charmed.
Because you want to go where everybody knows your name. Like
Right? Or at least everybody knows your handshake induction, right?
Hey, have you heard about my handshake induction? No? Well, here, let me show you. Right there. Oh, well, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time to come talk with us, and hopefully everybody enjoys getting to hear your stories as much as I did. Is there anything you want to add before we close things off?
Oh, wow. It has been really fantastic to go over all this stuff, and I've felt really comfortable sort of just sharing what was going on with me and kind of the things that I really like about Charmed and HypnoKink in general. So you've made this a really comfortable experience, and I want to thank you for that. And just to those of you out there who Sai might ask to do the same thing, it's not as scary as you might think.
I really do appreciate that because I suffer through anxiety just like everybody else. I have those same critics. It's a rough situation, but I put myself into every interviewee's shoes to say, hey, what can I do to make your life a little bit easier? This is not going to be a grilling session. This is just, hey, let's have a conversation. People want to know more about you. Let's talk. So I'm glad that that came across, and I'm glad that you had a good experience.
Definitely. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. Well, you have a good night. We'll talk at you later.
All right. Thanks, Si.